Hello, my name is Rachel Chu, and for my Art 111 final research project, I decided to focus on Vincent van Gogh. So, why did I choose Van Gogh? Well, when I was younger, I always heard people talking about Van Gogh, and I saw many of his famous works like The Starry Night and other works, and I was truly amazed by these works. And I even wanted to try and repaint them. But I wanted to learn more about this famous artist because a lot of people around me knew about him, and I had heard some pretty bizarre stories about him cutting off his ear, so I wanted to explore more. So here's some background information. So Vincent van Gogh was born in the Netherlands on March 30th, 1853. And at the age of 16, Van Gogh began to work for the Hague Gallery, and he traveled to London and Paris for this. But he still lost interest in art and became a missionary instead. But being a missionary would eventually lead him back to art because after working as a missionary with some miners in Belgium, Van Gogh decided that he wanted to leave an impression on the world, and he thought art would help him do this. And so his career as an artist was launched. And so on July 29th, 1890, Van Gogh would die. So here are some influences. So Van Gogh's moved to Paris in 1886 when he was around 33 influenced Van Gogh greatly because he was exposed to artists like Paul Gauguin, Claude Monet, Camille Pissarro, and Emile Bernard. Paul Gauguin in particular had a great impact on Van Gogh, as Gauguin would inspire Van Gogh to paint from memory, which allowed for many new things to occur in Van Gogh's paintings. Theo Van Gogh, Vincent's brother, would also help Vincent by providing financial and economical support. Finally, mental illnesses would influence Van Gogh as well, as he suffered from depression, anxiety, and epilepsy. And due to his illnesses, he would be sent to the Saint Remy de Provence Asylum. And here he would paint his most famous works when he would have the greatest clarity of mind between having seizures that were brought on by his illnesses. So now we are moving on to Van Gogh's style, technique, and medium. So Van Gogh painted under a lot of art periods, from realism to pointillism. But his most famous works happened under his post-expressionist style. And post-expressionism was a trend in painting starting around 1885, when painters would build on impressionism. And painters under this style included Georges Seurat, Paul Cézanne, Paul Gauguin, and Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. So, what are some techniques and mediums of Van Gogh? So Van Gogh would use open brushwork and pure colors, but Van Gogh felt that this didn't allow enough freedom of expression for him. So instead he started to use textual brushwork and bold colors that gave a rhythmic movement to his paintings. The Japanese style influenced him as well, the Japanese technique, as he would use bold but simplified shapes in flat color areas. And some of his mediums included oil paints, black crayon, and pencil. Van Gogh would also use the technique of impasto. And impasto is the brush strokes of thick paint that Van Gogh would use to show his deep feelings. So, here are two notable works, with the first one being The Starry Night. So, The Starry Night is an oil painting on canvas made in 1889. It was painted from the window view Van Gogh had in his room at the Saint Remy de Provence Asylum. And this is a very symbolic painting, since it expressed Van Gogh's feelings through rhythmic brushstrokes and displayed his spirit. And so he would paint between seizures, and this was a time when Van Gogh was not having any attacks, and there were moments of great clarity. And so some symbols in this painting would be the cypress tree. The cypress tree links the sky and the earth together, so it links life and death together. The sky is also an important symbol, with its bright colors against the dark little town, showing that Van Gogh still had some hope for recovering from his illness. And finally, the small town symbolizes the small scale of human life, since it seems tiny against the bright expanse of the sky. So, this is another notable work, Irises. And Irises was painted in 1889 in the same asylum where the Starry Night was painted. It is another symbolic painting with speculation about the white iris, which many believe that is Van Gogh and how he felt about being in the asylum, and that he felt different and alone because in the painting there is only one white iris that stands out amongst the purple irises. And so to Van Gogh, this was just a simple painting. There were no sketches to plan how he would make it. He was just painting an area at the asylum. And yet in 1987, it sold for $54 million. And it is one of the most expensive paintings ever sold. So here are some interesting facts. In the span of 10 years, Van Gogh created about 900 paintings, with his most famous works being made when he was at the asylum. And so after having an argument with his friend Paul Gauguin, Van Gogh would cut off his left earlobe with a razor, and he would give it to a prostitute so that she could hold on to it. Many speculate about what made Van Gogh do this, but most believe that it was due to his mental illnesses. And finally, Van Gogh was made famous by his sister-in-law after his death and his brother's death, Theo. When Theo's wife, Joanna, would get Van Gogh's paintings to exhibitions, and Van Gogh would become a world-famous artist. So, downfall and importance in art. In the end, Van Gogh would try to commit suicide, and so he shot himself in the stomach. He didn't die immediately from the wound, but 2 days after his attempt at suicide, at 37, he died from the stomach injury. And so Van Gogh's life had been a struggle for his entire life due to his illnesses and lack of positive reception for his artwork, since he had only ever sold one painting in his entire life. But despite this, his bleak life, Van Gogh would become famous after his death, and he would impact art by influencing the style of Expressionism and Expressionist artists. And today he is regarded as one of the world's best artists, one of the world's most famous artists that continues to influence artists of our modern times and will probably continue to do so in the future. So here are my information citations, my image citations, and thank you so much for watching.